thanks guys a lot for coming. We are going to hold the part of this meetup in English as we have guests from London who reach out to our community and asked if we wanted to him to come and give a presentation about Angular2. And I think that this is the topic hot enough to say yes. So we have Gerard today with us, and he's going to give us the introduction to Redux for Angular2. After his presentation, we're going to have a Q&A session, so just feel free to ask any questions regarding the topic that you just have in mind. Gerard is a Google developer expert and also is very much involved in AngularJS communities all around Europe and also in an Angular Connect conference that is going to be held in September in London. So if you're interested about that, you can also ask him. Then we will have a presentation in Polish. So this will be more easygoing and preparing for the match that we are allowed to watch here. So that's a bonus. I will not hold you anymore with my presence here. So I'll just sit down and pass the stage to Gerard, and let's welcome.
Today I'm going to talk about Redux and Angular2. A lot of people is using Redux in the React community, and just recently the Angular community has started to look into how we can use Redux. So I'm going to show a simple example, and then I have another more complex using the latest implementation using reactive extensions. So the first one is going to use just Redux, the library built by Angular2, and later on I'm going to use library that was built by Rob Mormon, big member of Angular2. And the main difference is that they're using RxJS as the core instead of Redux. So let me just present myself. So this is my avatar. You can see also the logo for Angular Google Developer Experience. This is not very known. If you go to the Angular2 website, you will see that when we post some content, it will appear either our picture or this small logo that you can see there. And what you can see also that I use a white tiger, and it's nothing like me, so I should explain why. So I'm using the white tiger because it's kind of inspiring me when I'm coding, or I have to do a talk and I have struggles, I can't continue, and then I think, okay, I need to be the white tiger, and then I can finish, the things that I plan to do. So this is a little bit about me. Obviously, there's a little bit more. So I'm a JavaScript lover, now a TypeScript lover as well, and also an Angular2 fan. So I wanted to talk about Angular Connect. This is the biggest conference happening in Europe. This year there will be also NG-Europe in Paris. Angular Connect is by the end of September, and NG-Europe is in October. So they are really close, one to the other. But if you are not able to travel to any of these two conferences, there will also be NG-Poznan that is still in preparation, but will be in November. And I hope that soon you will have more information about that. It's planned to be on the National Stadium, so I hope you will enjoy it. So the main, let me know how many of you are using Redux or have seen some implementation of Redux in Angular2. Okay, so not many of you. And have you used Redux in React, like alone? Okay, so so the topic is a little bit new then. So this is how it looks. The main property is that it's a unidirectional data flow. Instead of having a two-way data binding, what we have is different components, and these are linked in one way. So these are the components. We're starting from the top. We can see the actions, and the actions will be a small task that we want to execute in our application. So this could be anything from applying a search, ordering a list, toggling to-do item. I'm going to show you a to-do list example. I hope it's not too boring, but it will be easier to follow. So I think it's a good choice. Then after the actions, the next step will be the users, and this will create the new state of our application. And this is a really nice property from Redux. There's only one way that we can change the state of the application, and this is dispatching actions. And this is kind of the start of this one unidirectional flow. The next step is the store. And if you have been using Flux, you know that you can have multiple stores depending on the data structures that you want to maintain. For Redux, we are taking all these stores and we are just using one immutable instance. And this will allow us different features. And the main one will be improving performance. When we have an immutable state, we can make sure that all the changes can navigate from the root component down to the child components. And we only need one pass. We don't need to do this, digest cycle that we use in Angular2. We don't need to do different passes just to stabilize the changes. We can just do one pass, and all the changes will be correct. The next step is the view. Obviously, when we are dispatching these actions and we are generating the new states from the store, what we want is get these updates on the view, and that's the next step. The way we get the updates from the store is by subscribing. So when we create our components, the components that are visualizing the state, they will have to subscribe to it. Obviously, there's not only updates, there's also components that will trigger actions. And this will use the dispatch method. So this is more or less the overview. If you have any questions, you can shoot at any time. This is another, a little bit more complex diagram. And we introduce from the top, you can see that we have now middleware. And the middleware will allow us to implement different features. And this will work like a pipe. So for example, if we want to use the actions, for example, to log the states or to log the different stages of the state, we can use a middleware and do this in that step. We can also see that the reducer can be also stacked, like composed. We don't have to use just a single reducer. We can compose them and create complex data structures. And the rest is just the interaction from the user and our application. It just changes a little bit, but it follows the same unidirectional flow. What I want to show is this small demo. What I'm going to use is I'm gonna send the URL and add it to your meetup group. So this is the format we use in Angular Labs. This is the group that I run in London. We are now around 900 members, and we use these sessions once a month. So I'm going to change the execution a little bit. So instead of sending you like few exercises that you have some time to complete, I'm just going to follow the code and just follow the different steps so we can see how it's implemented. The first thing that you will see is that all exercises have an introduction, a description, that what we are going to do, and also kind of the time that you have to complete this exercise. I also like to add some references to the APIs that I'm going to use. And you can also, navigate and find more information. So in this first step, we are going to see how we set up the Redux library and how we can do this in Angular2. In this setup, I'm going to show you the demo first. This is a planter. So once we finish the session, you can go back and see how the exercise is built in more detail. Okay, it's a little bit slow. So basically, we have to do this example. We have an input at the top. Let me just increase the size a little bit. So for example, we can say an Angular2, and this will just add, all these things. Then this is just the beginning of the application. We will start adding the rest of the features. So for example, now we can just add a new to-do list. We can toggle different tasks. We can also not remove them. We can also not sort, do the sort. So we are going to implement all these features. Let's see how we can, first of all, let's see how we can change the setup. So first thing is, in this Planker, we are using System.js. We are going to add the CDN for the Redux library. In this case, I'm using the version 3. And that's one approach. The other approach is using an adapter. And some people have built like different libraries that are not using the Redux implementation, but are using some kind of adaptation or a port. I decided to use just the original. So this is how we will import it. On the Bootstrap, during Bootstrap, what we are going to do is create a store. And this is going to hold the initial state. One of the first things that we have to do in a Redux application is define what will be this initial state. For now, the initialization will be calling the create store, passing the root reducer. In our case, we are going to use just the root reducer. In more complex applications, we can create different levels depending on how complex is our UI. In this example, it's so simple that I just kept all in one level. So that will be our root reducer. The last step, we can see our root component. And in Angular2, the Bootstrap starts passing the root component. This will kick off the component tree and go through all the childs till it renders the whole application. What we are doing here is adding what will be our application store. And I choose this. There are few options in Angular2. There's one option using anonymous tokens, but it's a little bit more cumbersome. We will see this solution in a more complex example, so I'm going to use this one. This one is just replacing every instance. When I inject AppStore, it will just inject this value. And this value is just the instance of the application store that we created on the previous step. So that's basically the setup. What we have seen on the demo is that we can add some text on the input box. We can push the button and then get this added to the list of to-dos. So let's see how we can implement that in the initial state. So the initial state is going to be a simple array. And every time we add a new to-do list, we will add this just a simple object into this array. The way we will implement this is we're going to use this local template variable. We use the hash, and this will get a reference to the input, and this will allow us to get the text just before dispatching it to the store. So we can see this happening on the on-click event. Are you familiar with the new syntax in Angular2? So in Angular2, we can point to events from the DOM element, and this will be the event from the button, the click event. So it's actually hooking this function to the native event on the DOM element. So that's a pretty advanced feature that will allow Angular2 to remove a lot of directives that we won't have to implement. We can just use the API from the HTML elements, and Angular2 will be prepared for new events or new APIs that can be created in the future. And we can use just the parentheses and access this natively. So basically we are just passing this reference that we created here with this hash. We are passing it down to the add-to-do function. And what we are using is the first dispatch call. This is going to create an action and pass it to the top, and pass it down to the user, create a new state, and create a view. So that's more or less the whole path, if you remember from the last diagram. Then the next line, we are just setting the input value to an empty string, so it will just be prepared for the next to-do list. Then we can see an implementation, a case where we set up the application store, and we are using a regular dependency injection. And we are accessing to the actions that we are going to use in our application. We will see these actions in the next step. But we are just using a regular dependency injection. In this case, we are using a string token. This can also use these anonymous tokens, and it's a little bit more advanced. But this is just a simple implementation. So this will get our App Store as a private variable, and then we will be able to call the functions like dispatch. So this will make this available to us on the console. So next step is creating the to-do actions. This is called the action creator. It's basically a refactor of these all of these actions that we want to create in our components, and we don't want these actions to be sparse in all our application. We want all of these small functions in one place that we can import, and that will be the action creator. And this is just a helper function that will create this action that we will pass on the dispatch. So it's just a helper. We could remove it, but then it will be a little less maintainable. The next thing that we're going to look at is where in the reducer we are implementing the add to do. So basically, the reducer is a switch with different possible actions that we want to implement. And in this case, we just want to implement the add to do. And this will come into the type. We cannot see here, the type property here, but that will be part of the reducer logic. In this case, we are just concatenating the new action into the array, and this will return the concat returns a new array, so this will be a new instance, and that will maintain the immutability of our store. If instead of returning a new instance, we return the old instance, the consumers can access this reference and change the content, and that will introduce side effects. Obviously, if you know what you are doing, you won't change the content using the reference. You will use actions to change the store, but this is kind of open to mistakes or abuse. Another option is to use libraries like Immutable.js, and that will just completely avoid this kind of introducing a side effect, so it won't be possible. What we can see in the next exercise is how we can display a list. So we have implemented how we can add new to-dos. Let's see how we would go ahead and implement a list. So for a list, we are going to use the new NG-4, and this has changed slightly. So this is on the Redux candidate. This will be left to do. There are a few changes. This is using an older version. So we can see that we have the to-do as a directive, and we will import here, so we can use it just to show the list. So let's see how we implemented this component. The first thing that we do is inject the application store. We are using the inject because we're using this string, and that will make the application store available. What we want to do in this component is every time that we add a new to-do, we want to get a notification so we can update the list. So we are using an observable, and in order to get these updates, we are going to subscribe. And once we get the subscription, we get this executed, we are going to call getState, and it will give us the latest version of our application state. In this case, it's the list of to-dos. So that's what we are achieving here. And we are just changing the value that it's being displayed. This is using this to-do of to-dos. And this is just getting one instance for each item in the array. In this implementation, we are just using the text. We can add more state. And we are going to do this in other examples, that we can also say if this task is completed or not, or if we want to add other flags, we can also do it. Like for example, we could add a priority that could be easily implemented. In this case, we are just using the property text. Another interesting thing is we are using the lifecycle hook. When this component is destroyed, we are going to unsubscribe. So the string that is holding our application store, it won't be consuming memory. This is usually happening when we navigate between different routes. the component will be destroyed. Otherwise, it won't happen. But it's a nice pattern practice that we can use. Okay, I think probably I can leave this so you can look a little bit more later. What I want to do is show you this other example that I think is more interesting. So this is kind of the basic implementation of Redux. Sometime later, there was Rob Wormel and other people that started to think, okay, if we can use Redux, we can possibly implement Redux using RxJS. And he was working in RxJS in the library, and he started to create this new library that would be the implementation of Redux using observables. And this is one example. And what happens is, this is the GitHub repo. When we are using this implementation, we have a set of libraries that will not only implement the store, but also what replaces the middleware. This is the effects, and this is the latest version. We also have an implementation for the router using observables. Sometimes we want to store the state, and this is using index.php. So it will be able to retrieve this state, and we can come later, and it will just keep the state stored on our database. And then there's also this small library that will hook the router with the store, and will just link the store to different states of the goods, and it works pretty well. So this is the example, and I want to show you the main structure. So what the example is building is this collection of books. This is using an API from Google Books. There's only a search at the top, and let me see what's in there. Okay, it's not Angular, but something with Angular on the title. So you can add and remove titles to your personal collection. This is kind of the results. If I like this book, I can add it. I can also remove it. And if I add it, it will appear here on this other section of the application. So before I choose this one, let me remove it. So we have this Angular momentum of light. And we get this information from the Google library. If we see the code, I'm using Visual Code, and we can see all the dependencies here. These are all in GitHub. They are all in NGRX. This is kind of the bucket where they are creating all these small libraries. And what I want to show you is just the beginning, just after the bootstrap. What will happen is it will load the roots, just to give you the starting point. So let's see, for example, what it will happen when it will read the root. It will just try to load the pages collection. So if we see the structure, it's showing actions, components, effects. These are all the different structures that this example is using. We want to go to the pages. In this case, it's showing the collection of books. So here, we can see the list that we saw after doing the search. It will be the list below. What we can see here is an example of using the async pipe. And this is doing the subscription and the subscribe and unsubscribe automatically for us. So that's a really nice pipe that we can use. And what we'll use, let's see how the bootstrap works really quick. So we have a regular bootstrap. We have all the imports at the top. In this case, we also have the different sections. What we want to look at is the reducer. So this is happening here. And in this case, we have three different reducers. We have the reducer that is going to handle the books actions. Then we have the collection reducer and also the search. So we can see the different components, how they are separated by different, but implementing different reducers. What is really nice from this example is we can use these effects, and these effects will allow us to do what the Ajax calls within wrappers. So we can handle if there is a success or if there is an error. Let me try to show you how it's using it to load the books. So basically, it's going to use an observable to load the collection. Observables or streams use this name convention ending the variables with this $. So it's basically using this observable and waiting for different actions. This is a slightly different from the previous implementation, from the simple example. Then it uses switch map to just get the books. In this case, it's using the local DB instance. And then it's using map just to pass the books into the dispatcher. In this case, because it's using an observable, it looks a little bit different, but this will be the observable that we have to use if we want to get this list of books. So I hope I tried to show a lot of different things. If you have any questions, it can be anything, Angular 1 or Angular 2, I'm happy to answer. So that's more or less the end.
What kind of editor?
Oh, this is Visual Code. It has some nice plugins for TypeScript.
And click from function to function, which is like in this stuff.
No, I don't know how to do. Maybe you can. What you can see is usually the signature. So if you are calling a function, you will see the types of the arguments. That's the basic feature. I don't know if they have added this, navigation. But if it's not available today, it will be soon. Oh, I forgot. So for any good questions, I used to give out some stickers. So these are some stickers from the Angular team. Thank you.
So I have a question, what should be put in the store? Like, because you can have a whole state of an application with what is visible, what is not visible, like flags for showing some additional components in the UI. So what should be put in the store and what is a bad practice in this way?
So obviously you have to decide and design what you want to have in your store. And obviously, if you, I don't know if you use, I don't know what technologies you are used to, but if you use, I don't know, C# or Web API or I don't know, Django, you have some objects that you want to serialize to the backend, and then you will have, like what is called a DAO. So then you will have different, stages that you will want to serialize in the backend. Sometimes you just want the state on the UI, and then you will use this to keep the state of some objects that you want not only to have the state, but you want them serialized in a database or somewhere. These are like two different types.
Okay, so it's not only the thing that you are storing in the database, but if you want to have a state for the UI, you also keep it in the store. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can decide. You can have some components that you don't want to keep part of the state in the store, but usually you will add all the state.
Okay. But an example, you have a posts list, and you have in the store the whole list, and for editing, you pick the item from the store, from the list, and you want to edit and send the request to the server change it. Yeah.
Yes.
So the question is, should I have the list and the item on a single post as two separate items in the store, or?
No. You should have a single store, not kind of two separate versions of it.
But what about the situation when?
Unless you want to create some kind of cache, or
Okay.
there are scenarios where you may want to do that if there is a lot of data and you want just to keep, slides.
Because I was thinking about the scenario where you have a post, you click, I want to edit it, and in the meantime, someone else has changed the value on the server side.
Yeah. For
So,
real time.
yeah.
For real time scenarios, then you will have to sync up and see, you can also add these effects, if you use WebSockets or any other, real time, API, what will happen is you will run these side effects exactly as if they come from the application. So they will send different actions, and you will have an action to update. So it will just, it just as you update the value, or it's coming from a sync event.
And some WebSocket should send a notification.
Yeah, we'll just dispatch, the action. You can maybe dispatch the action in bulk instead of doing, one by one. You can just say, okay, just do it in one packet.
Okay.
And that's, obviously you design the application.
Yeah.
You can do it in any way you like.
Yeah. But I was thinking, what is the practice with using store?
Oh, the simple answer is you want to keep everything on the store.
On the store.
But you may decide, like, if you have a really big state, you may decide, okay, I don't want to know, if this drop down is, toggle or not.
Yeah.
Or maybe you want to store some of these, like, Windows configuration somewhere else, so you can recover that.
Yeah, I was thinking about, for example, a call structure that is sent to the server, like to store it.
Usually the idea of Redux is to make it easy. So you want a single store, and then you want this to be immutable, and then you do this, you dispatch these actions, there's, a new state is created, and then you can implement these, like, funny things, like, go back in time, store the different, do this, the debugging sessions,
Restore call session.
default reloading, and all this. If you start, like, mixing or making a hybrid,
Yeah.
it won't work. All these nice features will stop working. But you can use it because it's kind of, you're moving it to a Flux. You want to kind of like, I want to separate the stores, but then it's not Redux.
Thanks.
We have one more question.
Okay.
I'll keep it.
Yeah. Yeah, we wait for you.
So when you use Redux with React, there is this possibility to use the so-called connect function, which can map the state and the dispatch function properties and blocks.
Yeah.
Is this something available, for example, in Angular also?
I've seen this implementation in some, I think it's NG2 Redux, that implementing this, but in my opinion, like adding kind of new functions to the component doesn't feel right. It feels more like you should use an API inside the store and you change the.
About mapping the state. It's not functional.
Oh, what you can.
Pass it into the constructor.
Yeah, what you can see in the second implementation is some interesting compositions. So they're using some compose functions to do this kind of connect feature in a composable way, so they can even pass more functions and they will just be applied. So you can implement connect there, but they also allow to do more complex scenarios. But the thing is, Redux is changing, in the React community. It's also changing in all these separate libraries. They are implementing the things that they like effects, and they decide different, slightly different things. So you can see Connect on the original Redux, but then in the other implementations, some of these are changed to effects. First middleware was Sagres, and now it's effects, side effects. So it's kind of adapting. We'll see which one. So you have the question.
Yeah. And then the question: what is the actual? What is the main benefit for using a custom implementation of Redux, like you are demonstrating it, over the original one?
Oh no.
I've had the I've managed to implement like the original Redux to work with Angular2, and here it seems like there is a new family of frameworks, libraries that are dedicated for Angular2. So what's the benefit? Is it like just the effects, or is there something else that makes it easy to implement radio?
The thing is, the React community is more, has been using Redux for more time, but then the Angular2 community is using more observables for more time. So the observables implementations are kind of different. So sometimes they implement the same thing, sometimes they implement more. And then if there's no nice, there's no like, okay, connect is this in this other side. In the first example, I was using the common Redux, just importing the library and just using it in Angular2. Just changing some, dependency injection and changing little things, but you can use it as it is. And this is kind of one school. One school is use Redux, the library that everybody knows. The other one is, let's create a new thing using observables that looks like Redux.
The question is, which one is better maintained by the community?
For my opinion is we should use the Redux, the original one. But the other ones, they are also like popular. More for the people who are used to observables. It's nice. If you see what you can do with observables and streams, it's kind of you need to get used to it, but then it's a little bit nicer than the common Redux implementation.
Okay, so I guess the observable version is making it easier for the Angular developers to integrate.
Yeah, it's fitting more with the Angular to otherwise, what happens is when we subscribe, we have to subscribe explicitly when we use the original Redux implementation, so there's some more code. When we use the observables, we just need to subscribe and then it's just happening. And we can also link it to a template. So there are a few differences. I would say that, the NGRX looks better in Angular, like more advanced. Redux seems like a little bit with more code, a little bit more. Yeah, more.
Any questions?
I without any additional effects, you shouldn't have any API calls inside the users, as I intuited from the concept. So the effects are the things that happen asynchronously in the meantime. How it's
Yeah, so this is the implementation. Oh. So this is the implementation, so this is the search, okay? So basically, the search is, we create the observable from the input text, so every time we put the KApp event, we take the text, and then what we are doing is we are passing, we're just filtering the actions that are actually the search, just like the reducer. So now we are just taking care of the actions that are related to the search input. Then what it's doing here is using, yeah, that's preparing the payload to do the query. Then the query is executed. Well, there's some, you know, we don't allow empty strings. We don't want to do our Ajax call with an empty string. Then what we are doing, this is the actual HTTP call, but it's not happening here. It's happening in, you know, in the Google Book service. So if we go here, let's see services. So here we can see the imports for HTTP. We see the API, Google Books. And then we are just calling, in this case, the search books. We are passing, you know, what was in the input box, and there's some TypeScript, but this is the actual call. And we are using just, you know, the regular map to get the items, like the results, and back to the reducer. So yeah, you can, you know, follow it a little bit there. Okay, no, that's not here. It wasn't a component. Oh, I lost it now. But yes, sorry. Yeah, here. So then we are using map, and then this is coming from switch map. So switch map is taking the latest observable, the latest Ajax call that is returning results. Then we take this, the results that was like JSON items. This is the books, the actual array. And then we are doing, we are calling this action that basically what it's doing is just setting the new books for the collection results. So it's just dispatching the actions using this, it's using observable.
This is the one where we know that the request is finished.
Yeah, so instead of doing dispatching different actions depending on the results of a promise that you do, like in the regular Redux implementation, this is just all observables and the results. And then, for example, this is the error handling. And yeah, it's kind of like, okay, if there is an error, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this value, and it's going to have an empty action that the search is finished. But it's just because you want to remove the list that is actually on the field. So if you add some like strange characters, you should be like an empty list. So, but it's a little bit, yeah. Using observables, you can see it's a little bit like what. But that's a more advanced example. Hope you have enjoyed. Yeah, I was thinking.
Gerard is going to stay with us for longer, so not only for the presentation. And I will switch to Polish just in a couple of seconds. But just to let you know, as I was thinking of how to match those two presentations today, but we had a question about observables. and the second presentation is going to be about reactive programming. So the topic will be touched and covered as well.
Oh,
So I'm very
perfect.
happy to tell you that. And that the presentation is going to be in Polish, but I think that coding is kind of universal language. So,
Good luck.
so there will, no one will have any trouble with understanding that. Now we're going to have a 5-minute break, so Daniel can just switch to the projector, and I invite you to press the bar.